Do you need fabric? So do I. I have 5 upholstery projects, basically 5 sofas stacked in a corner that I really need to start recovering, and I couldn't figure out where to get the right kind of fabric. I have done all the homework and I'm gonna share my findings. First, I'll tell you about the places that, I was gonna say something inappropriate, the places that aren't so awesome and why I don't like them. And then I will share with you some places that I love and some new discoveries that this upholstery binge situation has forced me to sleuth out on the internet. And here we go. A lot of small shops have closed. It's no big news flash that mom and pop shops, unless they're tremendously special or have a really smart angle on business, have had a hard time surviving the advent of the internet and then getting through COVID. I used to live in New York, and there's a whole district in New York, and you can find from the nicest of stores. I used to go to B&J, and then there were like all these weird discount shops, and I'm not there anymore. I'm not gonna fly to New York for fabric at the moment. So I'm trying to find anything local and then anything online that feels like an actual reliable source for me. Either new or dead stock, but preferably dead stock because I love a good value. I will also say that this is very subjective, and if you're a quilter, if you have a different aesthetic than mine, like, you may find resources that you love that are different than the ones that I love, but yeah. So this is what I found, and they're kind of weird. Let's start off talking about the local situation. I'm now in Portland, Oregon. I did a Google search. I was looking for any discount fabric store or any fabric store that carried like higher end. I was looking for that kind of magical nexus of value and quality. Reliable source of fabric in any town is your local thrift store, antique mall, auction house, but it can be a ton of work to find those gems of fabric because you're going to Goodwill weekly or every few days to see if they have new stock. And really then you're only looking for comforter covers, sheet sets, sheets, drapery, fabric. I recently made a dress out of a canvas shower curtain, but it's limited yardage, but worth a shot. And depending on what quantities you need, those can be excellent. Even at, at antique malls, sometimes you'll find a bolt of fabric. It can be very exciting. Of course, in most cities, most urban areas, somewhere in the suburbs, you will find a giant Joann Fabrics. Apologies in advance. This is gonna be akin to like a Caroline Winkler rude review, but I am not a fan. You may love Joann, and that's totally cool. They have some great deals. They have great coupons. I find it very pleasant to be inside of a Joann. There's one near Portland that is just so spiffy. It's massive and well lit. They have every supply, but I don't happen to love their fabric. I'm gonna be like, I feel like I'm gonna get so trolled for this. I'm a sucker for a really high quality fabric. Anyway, Joann just doesn't, I just don't like it. I have tried to force myself because I couldn't find another source. And every time I go, I search and I search and I leave and my mind is fuzzy and I haven't found anything. It's like so many things are almost there and then you feel it and it's wrong, or there's the sheen is wrong, or the weave is wrong, or something about it feels synthetic in a way that's not nice, or it hasn't worked for me. So my third option, the only other option that I found in Portland, is called the Mill End store. And I was tremendously excited to find this store. My first trip there, I pulled in at this massive warehouse. I sat in the parking lot. There was a Porsche and I was like, this is a nice store, but it's a dead stock store. So it's an interesting place. The thing about it is you can find treasures in there. And I love the sense that there is the possibility of discovery. And maybe you have a store like this where you live, or maybe you're local to Portland and this is a useful resource for you. The stock is changing over constantly, but like once it's gone, it's gone. I will be continuing to shop there. However, I have been 3 or 4 times in the last few weeks to try and source upholstery fabric there, and it's just not working. It's like not quite right. And I know that the process of learning to reupholster a couple of these couches have like piping and various things. It's gonna be a skill building exercise. And if I'm gonna motivate, I better love this fabric. I need a carrot in front of me that says these couches will be incredible when they're finished. I can't have a mediocre fabric to work with, or I will never do the work. The bar is high, and I just couldn't find what I needed or wanted. I wasn't in love. And this is chapter 2, online fabric shopping. I've been avoiding it for years. It's so daunting, discouraging, mind-numbing. I didn't want to do it, and here I am. My hand is forced, and I've done the work. And here we go. Here's where I got stuck before. I would do a Google search for best online fabric stores, best discount fabric stores, and sites like Domino or various other kind of reputable design resources, Apartment Therapy, whatever, would have these articles outlining some fabric shops. And then I would go through all of those fabric stores. It hasn't worked for me. I am no stranger to online shopping. It's relaxing for me to scroll and scroll and scroll until I find just the thing. You know, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, this was what I was doing at thrift stores. The scroll was just through the racks. You have the benefit of touching the fabric and seeing the way the light hits the fabric. Online lacks that possibility. So with online shopping, I will offer one huge piece of advice, which is swatch it first. Order the swatches, spend the extra money to really know that what you are ultimately going to be purchasing yardage of is exactly what you think it is. The way that fabric is photographed and the way your monitor functions are not accurate representations of the fabric itself. Additionally, online fabrics often lack any contextual information for scale. I have no idea why these companies think that they can sell fabric without any reference to scale. Order the swatches. It's friggin' annoying. I'm impatient and love instant gratification, but cut fabric is not returnable. Here we go. I'm gonna show you some stores that I think are fine, some stores that I think are not fine, and some stores that I'm really excited about. First up, we have 2 stores that I strongly dislike. Like the Joann's thing, you know, I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just telling you what I think. Everybody gets to have their own preference, their own aesthetic preference, their own quality preference. Call me crazy. I think some people really love this store, and in certain contexts, Spoonflower may be just the ticket. It's not my jam. I don't like it. The deal with Spoonflower is they have a range of plain fabrics, canvas, various weights of linen, cotton, velvet, and then you can get like pretty much any print printed onto the fabric of your choice, and it's priced accordingly. I am generally not a fan of printed fabric, and I definitely don't want it for upholstery. Sometimes I love it like in a thin cotton, perhaps, as a dress or a shirt. I'm down. For a couch, I just feel like it's not gonna look right. Here's a lovely William Morris. I just can't imagine that I'm gonna like this. Poplin, jersey, canvas, denim, blah, 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 blah. If you like printed fabrics, this is probably a great resource. They seem to have an inexhaustible catalog of prints from all sorts of places. William Morris is wonderful. Another store I just for some reason, maybe this is also going to be controversial, can't stand mood fabrics. I don't know why. Even when I lived in New York, I was in mood fabrics once and I never went back. It feels like they have everything and nothing at the same time. And that is my nightmare for online shopping. If I'm gonna pay retail prices, I want it to be curated more than mood. Here are some viable online options at retail prices as opposed to discount. Etsy, search away. There are probably people who've curated some lists of great Etsy fabric sources. I have spent a lot of time looking for fabric on Etsy, and then when it comes time to pull the trigger, I'm always just a little annoyed at the price and have never completed a purchase. But there's great stuff available. I particularly think that the linens coming out of Eastern Europe, there's like some incredible palettes. The pricing is totally reasonable, even though I'm too cheap to buy it. It's great. There's some great things. I mean, look at this lovely embroidered linen. That is so sweet. By the way, though, most Etsy fabric is sold by the half yard. So watch out. When you say quantity 1, make sure it means 1 meter or 1 yard rather than 1/2. And you just have to read the description. It's a little tricky. Okay, so then Paragould has an interesting selection, a whole range of price points. So here's upholstery from somewhat reasonable, kind of middle of the road, 40-ish, to, kind of top tier retail pricing on really high end, like Schumacher, $500 a yard type of upholstery fabrics. This doesn't excite me. I love a deal. And part of my love for deal is about the hunt. Something about this feels less fun. I get so much satisfaction from finding a deal. So Paragould isn't for me per se, but this could be your jam. If money is no object, you may have a designer working for you. Okay, then one of my all-time favorite online brands, well, they also have a shop, but it is in Rye, England, and I shan't be going to England for my fabric, not this week at least. But they do a great online business. It's really easy to use. There's free shipping when you hit $150 in the US. They are just so wonderful. I'm a major plaids girl. I just love plaid and stripe. They just nail it on the gingham, on the plaid, on the palette. And the pricing is, it's retail pricing, but it's reasonable for the quality. Unfortunately, the selection of upholstery fabrics on Merchant and Mills is quite limited. They have a few beautiful corduroys, really soft and lovely, and they have a few really nice wools, but I didn't find what I was looking for. Nothing spoke to me for these projects and for the context that I'm designing within. But as I said about swatches, you've got to do it. And I did a late night swatch shopping spree some time ago, and I referenced these swatches for various projects. They have really great descriptions of the various weights that they offer, but because you're going to be good and order swatches, you will be able to feel them yourself. And then moving on to the discount fabric arena. So these two stores are more in line with the Mill End store that I shop at locally in Portland. They are clearing houses for dead stock, remnants. I don't know where they get all their things, but this is the kind of hunt that I get sort of like weirdly thrilled by. Can you see like how excited I am just even thinking about it? I love this kind of shopping. This is why I love The RealReal, because you can search in ascending price point order and find crazy things that are total steals. I learned a super valuable lesson on Denver Fabrics. They don't seem to offer swatches, which resulted in perhaps the best idea that I can impart to you when buying swatches, which is if the fabric is $15 a yard or less, buy a quarter yard. If the fabric is $30 or less, buy an eighth of a yard if you can. Sometimes it's a quarter of a yard minimum. I bought a lot of samples recently, and the cost of each sample for a quarter yard was around $3. This is a deal. This is a great deal because not only are you getting a piece of fabric much larger than a traditional swatch size, therefore much more useful for determining if you actually like the pattern or texture or weight or drape or whatever it is that you're evaluating, but that piece of fabric is then still usable. Cut a little swatch off and save it with a label for future reference if it doesn't seem like it's gonna sell out right away or whatever. And then you have a quarter yard of fabric to use on a project, which, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a quilter, but I could be if I end up with enough of these. Or maybe I'll make a patchwork drape, or who knows. So here's Denver, and I'm gonna go through how I deal with criteria on the other site, but I just wanna show you a fabric from my recent order. Here's an example of a fabric that reads a completely different shade of beigeish than it did on the monitor. It's a much nicer color than it appears to be on the computer screen. And you can see the texture from the photographs on the website, but you cannot feel how scratchy this is. Maybe you can hear it. It's this kind of really unpleasant tactile experience that, of course, you can only know from touching it yourself. It's a Converse. This fabric read like a really flat texture, but in real life, it is, well, first of all, the color is really rich. It's like an incredibly saturated 70s ochre, and it feels like heaven. It's like, I know there seems to be some kind of controversy about velvet, like some people love it and some people hate it. I love velvet, and chenille for me is in the family of velvet. And this is like it's like a sweater. It just has this like incredibly soft, sumptuous, like if this was on a cozy sofa, you would not be able to get me off of that sofa, which, you know, is pretty much the point, right, of a sofa, at least in a lot of cases. So this is one that I wasn't expecting much from, but that I actually really, really love. Again, it's this full, nice piece of fabric that I can play with and lay out and see if I'm gonna wanna buy. That is Denver. I love you. Now I'm just gonna show you on this other site, fabricwarehouse.com, how I search this hideous interface and the process that I go through to amass a cart full of swatches or quarter yards to check out before I make my decisions for what to order for my yardage. I'm in upholstery. You can either shop by the yard or by remnants. Some of their remnants are actually quite large pieces. That's a great section to look in as well. But we'll just go to by the yard. Look at all these extraordinarily hideous fabrics. So you're gonna wanna use your criteria because you will lose steam looking at this mess of things. You can shop by colors if you know what color you want. It can be really useful. I try to be really strategic about which criteria I check off. If it hasn't been categorized just so on the company's end, I really don't want to miss great fabrics because of over-honing my search criteria. But what I would do on this site is click every weight that is medium and heavier. So medium, medium heavy, heavy and extra heavy, leaving out lightweight and very lightweight because why would I put those on a sofa? Doesn't seem like it's gonna work out. So I'd click all of the weights that I want, and then I would click in the next section. I've already said I really am not such a fan for upholstery of a printed fabric, so I would click a woven design, maybe some embroidery might be nice. And I am not looking for a solid for these projects. Maybe it's because I have children and I find that solid things end up with little stains from all sorts of strange materials. Like my kids play with beeswax and the little teeny little balls like melt into the couch. It's insanely annoying and hard to get out. And here's my strategy. I have to remind myself regularly as I'm scrolling to trust my gut. If I start analyzing each fabric individually, if I click in on each fabric, I will lose my mind. I will lose all sense of what is right and good in my aesthetic world. I can't afford to spend that much time and to get that exhausted by this process. So what I do when I'm scrolling is I think, in this case, I think of the sofa that I'm upholstering, think of the room it's going into, or I think of all the sofas that I'm upholstering and possible rooms they're going into. And then I just scroll and I trust my gut. I don't click anything just because I think I should or could be good. I just trust my gut. I like this. It doesn't make sense to me that I like this, but I think I do. So on this site, because they have this handy swatch click, what I would do is just put all the swatches in my cart, amass 80 swatches or whatever it is. Maybe you won't be as crazy as I am. Maybe you won't spend 3 hours scrolling this entire website, scouring for every last possible fabric that could work for your project. Or maybe you will and you'll end up with 80 in your cart, like I did. Put all the swatches in, and then I just do a little review, and I weed out anything that looks inferior or that I've changed my mind about. I like to do this at night after my kids have gone to bed, and then all the swatches arrive, and you've got this kind of beautiful opportunity to really see what these things look like in person. I am sure that there are many people out there who have done their own research and have found their own online resources. Please comment below. Please let us know what you have discovered. If you hate something, if you love something, if you have a trick or a tip, this is an opportunity for sharing our collective knowledge about how to find great fabric and ideally great deals.